Hello, Horlick High School. Today what we're talking about is basically how you're going to do those beginning of the year forms, which that basically is the teacher self-review, the beginning of the year SLO, and the beginning of the year PPG. Those forms are due in the near future, and I thought I'd just give you a video on how you can go about doing them, but if you need extra help with like accessing them or filling them out or what have you, feel free to contact me. I'd be more than happy to support you in that endeavor. So I've already logged into my learning plan. If you're having issues with that, please see one of my other videos that looks at how to log into my learning plan. This is the home page, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll down to down here on the bottom under my evaluation. And in my evaluation, there's really three forms that we're in particular have fill out in the near future. The first is the teacher self-review. The second is the beginning of the interval SLO. And the third is the beginning of the year PPG. So I'm going to talk about each of these forms in a little bit of detail so you know what you have to do. And then if you have more questions, you always can contact me. So the teacher self-review, you just click the blue link down here which says Action Open Teacher Self-Review, and that opens a new window or a new tab for you. And in that new window or in that new tab, there is some information that you may find helpful for you. First, at the top, you can see who your assigned administrator is. And by this point in the game, I think you all will have been assigned an administrator, so you should be able to see who that is. Second, you can see what type of evaluation or what year you're in terms of the evaluation cycle. So for me personally, I'm in a supporting year, which means I won't have evaluators coming in to observe me as frequently as if you were in a summer year. The teacher self-review is basically a document that has you reflect on your practices, and as you reflect on those practices, you're kind of grading yourself on the Danielson framework, giving yourself a score between 1 and 4. So what it does is it breaks down, there's 4 domains in Danielson. It takes each of those 4 domains and breaks it down into the individual components. And for each component, you need to go through and identify where you feel like you fall into the basically Danielson rubric. So there's some boxes here that can kind of help guide you in terms of how you score yourself. So for component 1A, demonstrating knowledge of content and pedagogy, maybe I feel like I provide relatively clear explanations. I am able to answer students' questions and provide solid feedback, and my instructional strategies are sound. And so I've checked 3 things in proficient and maybe 1 thing in basic. I'm going to round up and I'm going to call myself proficient. So I would click the proficient box and notice that highlights it orange. So I've given myself a 3 on component 1A. I would then move on down to component 1B and basically do the same thing. I would identify where I'm kind of falling into the Danielson framework between unsatisfactory and all the way up to distinguished, and then I'm going to rate myself 1 through 4. In terms of entering evidence statements, my understanding is you can if you wish, but it's not a requirement for you to do that. So unless I hear otherwise for right now, I'm going to leave it as it's up to you if you want to actually enter evidence statements in this. I really believe this form is more of just an opportunity for you personally to reflect on your practices and kind of think about where you fall in this framework. This form is relatively lengthy and it takes some time to fill out. So there's a button at the bottom of the form for you to click Save, and you'll notice this is Saving the Form, Save Successful. So you don't have to fill this whole form out in one sitting. You can do it in pieces and get some of it done, maybe do a domain a day or something along those lines. Once you're completely done with the form, once you have everything filled out, you would just click Submit, and that will be then sent to whoever your evaluator is. The second form that I'm going to talk about is the beginning of interval SLO form. This is the form that is probably the most time-consuming and maybe trickiest to fill out because this is where you're crafting your SLO. And an SLO stands for a student learning objective. The big keys to a solid student learning objective is 1, it needs to be SMART. So it has to be specific, measurable, attainable, results-based, and time-bound. And this form kind of has you go through that and kind of make sure you actually are doing that. But if I were to simplify that, you really need it to be something that you're able to collect data on, whether that be through a rubric or through test scores or what have you. You need to be able to get some numbers from whatever your SLO is. And your SLO has to basically cover the entire time that you're working with these students. So if you have a semester-long course, your SLO would be for that entire semester. It actually has to be first semester. It can't be second semester. So if you're running a semester-long course, you'll want to get your SLO done this semester. If you're doing a year-long course, your SLO then would span the entire year. So you have to be kind of thinking about a skill or objective that you would be working with your students on for the entire year, not something that you just focus on in say, November. It has to span that entire course. So as we go through this form, let's kind of talk about the spots where you have to fill things out. There's something called the baseline data. Basically, it's asking you what or how are you going to figure out where your students are at the beginning of the year? How are you going to measure where they are in terms of what growth they're going to make? And there's a box here for you to basically write a few sentences discussing how you're going to gather that baseline data. Is it through a pretest? Is it through a writing prompt? Is it through scores that are provided from some online tool? Those are just some general suggestions, but you can obviously think outside the box and do something a little different, but we need to figure out where are our students right now. If you use a rubric or some tool to score your students that you could actually upload into My Learning Plan, there is a spot right here for you to add an artifact. The next box is about learning content and grade level. Basically, this is asking you what standards are you aligning this SLO to, and in particular, what grade level are you focusing on. So you'd write a sentence or two talking about that in this box here. There are some suggested inclusions listed here. You don't need to specifically answer these questions in that box, but it's more for you to kind of just mull over in your brain as you're writing these couple sentences in this box. The next section is on the student population. It's just kind of asking which students are you targeting and why are you targeting these students. So if you're trying to hit a specific population in your class, you could certainly talk about that, or you could just be saying, well, this is just a junior English class and I'm going to target all my first block junior English students. The next area is the targeted growth. Basically, it's asking what type of growth are you hoping to see from your students from now until the end of your SLO. And whatever that growth is, it should be realistic. So pick a goal that is attainable, not something that there's just very little chance of ever having that happen. So pick something realistic. The time interval is pretty straightforward. If you run a semester-long class, your SLO would be done around January. If you're running a year-long course, your SLO would be finishing up around May. So that's the time interval, just wherever your course ends. Evidence sources would be basically discussing what assessments or what rubrics are you going to use to collect data on how your students are progressing. And you would just kind of comment about that in this box here. Instructional strategies and supports. Basically, it's asking what are you going to do as a teacher to try to support your students to grow in that SLO. Are you collaborating with colleagues? Are you maybe attending webinars on instructional strategies to support your SLO? Are you reading books? Anything that you can think of that would make you become a better teacher and basically help your students grow towards that SLO would be able to be commented on in this box. Finally, after all of that, you're now ready to craft your SLO statement. And basically it's asking, is your SLO a SMART goal, specific, measurable, attainable, results-based, and time-bound? And if it is, just kind of go through and check these boxes off saying that it is. And then you would write your SLO statement. I'm going to send out a couple documents, and one of the documents is a SLO sentence stem. If you use that sentence stem, it kind of helps guide you in terms of what you write for your SLO. So here's the SLO sentence stem, and again, you don't have to use this sentence stem, but I will, and then whatever it is you're going to do, so that blank percent of my students, and again, you can choose what percent of and then what grade or course of my Algebra 1, of my Trigonometry, of my Junior English students can and then whatever it is you're hoping they can do, as measured by, so are you using a rubric, some specific assessment, whatever, and then by a specific date or time. This sentence obviously is very loaded. There's a lot of stuff going on in it, but it's really making sure you cover everything that would make it a SMART goal, that you've got all of those aspects that we were checking off on the SLO form here. So you'd write that SLO goal statement here. Once you have it written down, you can click the submit button and off it gets sent to your evaluator. The last form is the beginning of the year PPG form, and this form is much shorter than these other ones, so that's good. On this form, basically what you're doing is you're thinking about your self-review and kind of areas that you might want to grow as a teacher, and you would craft a PPG statement. That PPG statement would just basically be something that you are interested in getting better at. So it could be, I'm going to take some professional development, either through the district or through some other organization. I'm going to read a book that basically teaches some instructional strategies. I'm going to go and take some courses at a university or what have you. Anything that would make you grow as a teacher would be a great PPG. If you decide to align your PPG to your SLO, you can write that in this box right here in terms of how your PPG relates to your SLO goal. Once you're done, you would come on down here and you would identify what components of Danielson actually align to your PPG. More than likely it will fall somewhere in domain 4 because domain 4 typically focuses on growth as a teacher and things you're doing to become better at your craft. This box, the next box down, is talking about any instructional or non-instructional activities or resources that you will use to basically help you achieve your goals. So maybe it's collaborating with colleagues, if it's attending classes, maybe your classmates in class, if it's just even bouncing ideas off of me or another person at school, that's all great. Anything that you can basically do to collaborate with one another. Finally, if you're in a summary year, a year where you're being evaluated, you would click My Evaluator and then the name of your evaluator. If you're not in a summary year, you probably do a supporting, you'd be what's in the supporting year, and you would click a peer or coach, and you can just type whatever name in here that you want that you're going to be collaborating with. When you're all done with that, you just click the submit button and off it gets sent to your evaluator. Okay, so that basically covers the 3 forms that are due in the near future. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out and contact me. I'd be happy to support and help you in this. Hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.